Are you happy now, Molly? Is that the energy that you wanted to go for?
That's what I'm talking about. Although that was really loud in my headphones.
I was just watching you two in the little bottom corner thing, your reaction to that, and it's exactly what I wanted. Welcome to our final episode of Wandavision. Explain It To Me, I guess, because it said it was the series finale. I think this was a one-season thing. You're welcome, Mono. You're welcome. So we're going to be joined by Hector Navarro in a little bit. He's wrapping up another stream. He's been talking about WandaVision all day. He was talking with Catherine Hahn about it, and he's coming to talk with us as well. But he'll be on in 5 minutes. So until he gets here, yeah. So what did everyone think of the finale?
I liked it. Right before we started it, Alex, you told me that some people thought too much action and some people thought not enough. I was kind of surprised at all the action in this episode, but I liked it. I was like, okay, yeah, we're fully embracing magic fights now.
Yeah, I enjoyed it. I thought it was really good. It was, there were some really fun moments with the action. I didn't really think it was too much. I mean, it's a comic book show. There's going to be big fights. It's just gonna happen.
Yep.
Yeah,
and I thought they were really well done. They looked good, so I didn't really have a problem with it.
I do think some of the fighting kind of fell into that Dragon Ball Z, just we're flying around shooting stuff at each other, and it reminded me of Man of Steel a lot. But it also, I was like, this is probably something I wouldn't even notice if we had binged this series or if it were a movie. It's yeah, this feels like the final act. And
right.
It felt a bit of a departure from the rest of the series, but it's yeah, this is the big climactic event where they fight and throw magic at each other and shoot head beams at each other. So I thought it was fun.
Well, and I did think that also the way that the Vision, and I'm sure that we'll go through, the things, scene by scene, but the way that the fight with the two Visions went was perfect for that character.
I completely agree.
So that was cool to see also, that it wasn't just one of them pummeling the other into submission, basically.
It was using like a robot would. It was let's think this through.
Yeah, let's do a thought experiment now. Okay.
Which, yeah, it was fun, and it played into the themes of the show. Mm-hmm. So that is, we'll talk about this later, but I'm definitely okay, well, where did that Vision go? He just left.
Yeah.
And we didn't see him.
Yeah.
I was like, is he going to destroy himself? But then maybe not, because now he's got all these memories in his head. And I was like, maybe Vision lives on in New White Vision.
I mean, in the comics, he stayed that way for a while. So
yeah.
What's everyone's biggest question that they have? A lingering question from the end? Or what surprised you the most? I think that's more what I'm getting at.
I guess Pietro, for me, I'm still just okay, was he Ralph? And did Ralph look like that? Was he Quicksilver? He seemed like he was just chilling there, and I don't know what happened to him. Did he just disappear when the Hex did?
Yeah, I mean, it seems like that was just a dude that, that Agatha had made into Pietro. But at the same time, it's kind of weird that they didn't that nobody that was watching the show in the show said anything about oh, that's, we've identified that guy as Ralph.
Oh yeah.
Whatever. Because they had the IDs for everybody that was in the town.
Mm-hmm.
That's a good point.
Ralph Boner.
And I was Boner. And I was just curious, how does he have superpowers? That's what I kept coming back to. I'm
yeah,
it could just be some dude. She is mind controlling some dude, but how does he have superpowers? That's what confuses me.
Yeah, that was a little odd.
I was also surprised that the kids are gone. Well, for now.
Yeah,
For
I was
now,
surprised
yeah.
about the scroll thing at the end.
Mhm.
I thought I didn't see that coming. So
Yeah, lots of setup. Like it still had that very like MCU feel of like we finished our story and now we're gonna do some post-credit scenes and we'll set up the next stories.
yeah, but
I
at the
did-
same time, the like the post credits thing also
Boom.
were
Welcome,
very
Hector
relevant.
Navarro.
Oh, hey,
Hey, what's up, everybody? Hi, Alex. Hi, Molly. Hi, Ashton. Good to see you. Hi.
good to see you.
Hi.
Glad to have you back. There's so much to talk about. We have plenty of questions, so thrilled to have you back to yell at us about Wanda again. What did you think of the episode?
I really liked it. I didn't mean to interrupt. Ashton, you were in the middle of saying something, man. Did you want to finish that thought?
Yeah, I was just saying that especially the second after credit scene, to me, while it was definitely setting up some new things that we'll probably see in Doctor Strange, it also was nice to get that verification that the kids are going to continue to be a thing, that they aren't just like disappeared.
Dead? Yeah.
Yeah.
That was nice to know that the kids aren't dead. Yeah, I agree.
Mhm.
I overall really liked the last episode. Comic book references and seed planting aside, I think that the last episode delivered on Wanda and Vision and their relationship and that dynamic. I thought it was really emotional and really touching and really sweet. I liked the way that they wrapped up Agatha's storyline, and the show as a whole, I really, really enjoyed. I was really satisfied with the whole ding dong thing. So thank you guys again for having me. I'm happy to be here and chat about whatever you guys wanted to chat about.
But Sam, you've been chatting about WandaVision all day. I saw you did an interview with Catherine Hahn. Like,
Yeah, that was a while back, but
Oh.
I did it right before the show came out, and they sent us the people that were doing the interviews the first 3 episodes, so we watched them a week or 2 before the show came out, and that was just me saying goodbye to Catherine Hahn. And this was for Nerdist, and my buddy at Nerdist was like, I have that, because that goodbye did not make it into, the interview where I'm getting information and questions and stuff out of these actors and producers of the show. So my friend was like, I have the goodbye if you want a clip of that. And I was like, yes, please, because I quote Anchorman to her. So I would really like to have that live somewhere. And he was like, yeah, here you go. And you can tweet it and go ahead. And so that was great.
Nice.
Cool.
Well, I guess we'll just start with the top, and like we get them fighting right away. I really
well, first of all,
liked
hang on.
Oh, okay.
What did you guys think of the finale? Alex and Molly, and I know Ashton's a big Marvel guy, but what did you two think of the finale with a perspective of you're less familiar with some of this stuff and these concepts and everything? How did it work for you?
Yeah, I liked it. I thought that the slower moments were really great. We were talking about it a little bit, where I thought that some of the fighting was a little bit Dragon Ball Z and just flying around shooting magic and face beams at each other. But like, I still enjoyed it. I really liked the final moments with Vision and Wanda, and like the Hex closing back down. I thought that was really, really well done and sad, but also hopeful. So I loved the moments between Wanda and Vision.
Great.
Yeah, I said earlier that we're like full on into magic fighting now for the MCU, and I'm digging it. It was really cool to see Wanda and Agatha go kind of toe to toe, and yeah, I really liked her and Vision's story and how it all ended, and it just kind of made sense. And I know a lot of people were saying that all these theories that people have been throwing around this whole season, they were kind of let down by the way that it ended. And I tried not to get my expectations up for any crazy theories that we talked about. So I didn't feel left down or let down by any of the stuff that happened. But yeah, that last scene, I was like, oh man, what is this setting up? What does this mean for the future of Wanda, Scarlet Witch? So excited.
Great. Okay, cool.
So yeah, I want to jump back to the beginning where they're fighting right away, and I love that we got the answer to like, why did Agatha let Wanda out of the little rune room? because we had that question last week, and that she straight up wants to steal her power. Is that something that Agatha could do in the comics, or was that just set up by the scene from episode 8?
I can't recall if that's what Agatha Harkness's deal is. I think she's a little bit more of a typical standard witch character in the Marvel Comics universe. And I think it was a pretty simplified take on her like abilities and powers, down to the fact that like they color coded it for this show. You know, like they color coded the Harry Potter wands in the Harry Potter movies, where it's like Harry's shooting the red beam and Voldemort's the blue beam, and so you can know like, okay, who's good and who's bad. She had the purple motif, and then Wanda has always had that scarlety red color, which is cool. So I would have to go and do that research on Agatha, but I don't think that that's her deal, because again, her deal is that she's kind of a mentor character to Wanda, and she's almost been more of a good guy than a bad guy, but she has been a straight up typical witch, and she's lived a really long time, and she's got a bunch of kids, and one of her kids is Nicholas Scratch. So when people were like, "Oh, the rabbit's name is Sir Scratchy," is that her son? Did she did she have a man and put him into the form of a rabbit? And maybe that might still be the case. So they used her as an antagonist in this, but the way that the show ended, first of all, Wanda didn't kill her off. Like the show didn't kill her off. She's still around. Then Wanda gave her like a really sad and kind of messed up fate to be like, okay, if you tried to butt yourself into my world just to figure out my power or whatever, then I'll make you the nosy neighbor and you're stuck this way. And she was like, no, that's cruel. Don't do it. And then she said, you don't know what you've like unleashed.
Mm-hmm.
You don't know what's coming. You're going to need me. And when she said that, I went, oh, I wonder if they're going to use Catherine Hahn in Doctor Strange 2, or if Doctor Strange is going to deal with the way that Thanos was the big threat for the Infinity Saga. If like the next threat is like a magical threat, because technically, if you watch Doctor Strange, like Dormammu did not get taken care of; he just got tricked into a loophole. So Dormammu is really a bigger threat and scarier and more universe reality ending than Thanos. Especially in the MCU. Thanos is just like, I just want to kill half and then I'm good. And then he went and retired. He just went, but like Dormammu is like, I'll take over your entire universe and end it from my dark dimension or whatever. So like maybe Dormammu's the threat. Maybe character like Nightmare is another Doctor Strange villain. He could be the threat, but whatever it is, maybe Agatha will be used more as a mentor or ally going forward. I've seen people talk about maybe she's like the next Loki, the way he went from Thor villain to like kind of ally, kind of good guy, and so that's very, very intriguing for me, and I hope that that's the case, because I want Catherine Hahn to stick around, and I want her to be like in a Fantastic Four movie, and and going forward as much as they can pull from her comic book storyline, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I would love to see her back again, and I do like that we got like a little moment kind of paying homage to the idea that she was more of a mentor when Wanda puts the runes up, and she is like,
thanks for teaching me that.
Yeah, thanks for teaching me that.
Yeah.
Totally.
I definitely have written down that quote. You have no idea what you've unleashed. What Ashton and Hector, what do you think that is?
I think it's probably something to do with the Darkhold and Chthon.
Obviously, I have questions about that as well.
Yeah. Which also, to an extent, maybe that it would explain Agatha being kind of a little bit more of a villain than normal if she was in possession of the Darkhold. Maybe it was influencing her in some way. I don't know. That might be a little bit too contrived, and I could just as easily see it just being her, like, being this ancient witch who doesn't really care that much about other people for the most part, but isn't really, like, evil per se. Whereas now Wanda's like straight up just reading the Darkhold, so who knows what's going to happen there?
Yeah.
Does the Darkhold does that, being in possession of that, does that kind of make the person more evil?
Well, the Darkhold is attached to a character that Ashton brought up that is an old ancient evil, and that character can possess or influence people. And even in the comic books, they have revealed that the Scarlet Witch and her birth, because she's a mutant, and so was her twin brother, Pietro Maximoff Quicksilver, but like where she was born was in Eastern Europe at a place called Wundagore Mountain or Wundagore. And that mountain is also supposed to house the spirit of Chthon or Chthon or however you want to pronounce it. It's like CH''THON. So this entity is a being as old as the earth itself. Like when the earth was formed, the entity of Gaia formed. It's like the spirit of earth, and she sort of takes the shape of like Mother Earth. So she's kind of like a woman character. And then Chthon was like it's just the embodiment of evil and darkness. And he was this old ancient, demon. And eventually he somehow got trapped in his essence, got trapped in Wundagore Mountain by sorcerers, by good humans, whatever it is. But from that mountain, he would slowly like influence people. And when Wanda was being born, like her mom was giving birth to the twins, he put his influence into the little infant baby Wanda Maximoff to make her very susceptible to dark magic and to being a sorcerer. So like her mutant powers, because in the comic book she's a mutant or sort of like affiliated with the X-Men world, and she first shows up as a member of the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants, but the Brotherhood of Mutants that Magneto was leading. And then she thinks and learns that maybe Magneto's her dad, and he kind of is, but now it's been kind of retconned that he's not. The point is that she's half, just like the show, she's half like a person with powers and half a witch. But the half that's a witch, this Chthon character like influenced that in her from birth so that she was more susceptible to like picking that stuff up and doing it. So her mutant powers were helping her do that. It's a little hazy. It's a little blurry. And I think the show tried to kind of iron it out and kind of, split it a little bit and make it a little bit more clear. But I think that, like Ashton was saying, it could be, if it's this demonic character, it could even be that. And they could use that in a sort of a Thanos Endgame way, and have it really open up the whole world for magic stuff. And remember too, we're also getting vampires with Blade. I think we talked about this last time, and it's like the MCU is going to start to open up to other realms and other areas of their storytelling. And Blade and vampires in the supernatural already kind of goes back to the Chthon stuff, because he would sort of plant seeds to like, he may have even had something to do with the first vampire. I don't know. I need to go back and yeah, exactly. So it's like, it could all be kind of loosely connected. And when people have the book, maybe they're susceptible to that, but it could also be this Chthon being entity somewhere. Or maybe they'll take a lot of that stuff out and replace it with like Dormammu, because they've already set up Dormammu, and Dormammu will take the role of that type of story and be the villain of that type of story. Instead of the MCU being like, okay, now we're going to do a Chthon story. Now we're going to do Nightmare. Now we're going to do Dormammu. They're all kind of similar. So they might, they might mainstream it and be like, here's the big bad demonic sorcery thing that Doctor Strange will be involved in. And then the next time we'll do like the Fantastic Four is going to fight Doctor Doom, and then Galactus and whatever else. So.
Well, and I think it would be really interesting if they do the Chthon thing for Doctor Strange, because Chthon is very much like a Cthulhu kind of character, like a Lovecraftian horror kind of entity. And so if they are doing, Multiverse of Madness being like this twisted horror kind of theme, it would fit really well.
Yeah, it exactly what you said, Ashton. If this character shows up and he like pops into our reality and our plane of existence, we're just done. It's everything. Everything's dead. So it's that Lovecraftian existential cosmic dread, cosmic horror, which could be really cool for a family friendly franchise. We'll see.
So what was it that Wanda did that would have unleashed something? Was it just unlocking her powers, or I wasn't really sure?
I mean, that's a great question. I think it's a little unclear. Maybe it was just the fact that she set up this huge hex thing and covered an entire town and just displayed that much energy that maybe it's almost like she's going to become like a fly zapper, like attracting different stuff. Because I go back to like, well, how did Agatha learn about this? Probably because she's a witch somewhere on the planet, and she's tapped into that energy. And at some point, something went off where she's like, what the hell's happening in New Jersey? And then she went over there to scope it out. And then pretty early on to this charade, she was like, okay, we're in the 50s. Okay, I'll be the nosy neighbor, just to infiltrate and like get information. So maybe there's other less savory characters like Agatha who are going to want her power, or they're going to want to, I don't know. I mean, I don't know. And how will the public deal with it? At the end of the episode, all the people that were freed were looking at Scarlet Witch like, I hate you.
I definitely want to talk about
right?
that. Yeah.
You enslaved me for days. So it's like, is that the beginning of the public in this world distrusting Scarlet Witch, distrusting magic users, distrusting mutants? Is the word going to get out that like she's a mutant? And then that's how people are going to, one of the reasons they'll turn on mutants, even though they live in a world where there's superheroes that they adore that have superpowers just the same. Like,
I like that idea a lot, just because at the end I was like, I feel like there should have been something like a confrontation. Wanda apologizes to Monica, but like not to the town. She just kind of dips out, and it's like,
well, she says nothing. She says could say to them would matter, which is kind of true.
Before we move on, also I think that another possibility as far as the what she's unlocked thing could just be that Agatha's been reading these prophecies from the Darkhold, a lot of which apparently have to do with the Scarlet Witch. And so that could be why Agatha was there in the first place, was that she knows that there's this whole Scarlet Witch entity that's supposed to show up and destroy the world. And so she's going there to steal that power away so that the world doesn't get destroyed, because maybe she's thinking she can contain it or something. And then, it seems like during her fight with Wanda kind of embraces the persona of the Scarlet Witch, and maybe that's basically what she's referring to, is like, okay, you started using this Scarlet Witch magic, we're screwed,
Well, it does remind me of the end of Iron Man, of like, I'm announcing that I am a superhero, and the Nick Fury comes up like, you idiot, do you know what you just did? So it could be very similar to that.
Totally.
I also kind of got the feeling that maybe the fact that Wanda created her own children was part of it. Just like, Wanda, you have no idea how to contain your chaos magic. You've created your own children. That's gonna always be in there. And
Ashton, you want to take that one? You want to get it to the kids, man? You want to set that up?
We have discussed them a bit.
Yeah, we've talked in previous weeks about how the kids in the comics are like shards of Mephisto's soul after he fought with Franklin Richards and got his butt kicked. And so, like, those are all characters that haven't been introduced in MCU. So I doubt that they'll do exactly that, but they may very well do something similar. And then we're going to see, like, okay, now what's going on with those kids then? That maybe the power has something to do with the Darkhold, since she was near the Darkhold when she did it, and they'll just use that as a proxy for Mephisto.
Will the MCU confirm the existence of a soul? Will it flat out do that? I don't know.
Well, we have the Soul Stone, so
that's true. So is that the confirmation? It's like, yeah, that's really interesting. Maybe there will be some confirmation to it, because the MCU so far has confirmed there's an afterlife if you're Wakandan, and a Black Panther like chieftain, like there is like an ancestral plane. As Guardians have talked about Valhalla, but we don't actually see like Heimdall and Loki and the Warriors 3 go to a Valhalla. They just died. But will they be resurrected? I don't know. But will that idea actually come to fruition? I don't know. The thing I'm really thinking about right now is that comic books, the Marvel universe is a little wonky with its timeline. So when Wanda and Vision did have these kids and they were young and they got to be like a few years old, maybe like 4 years old, 5 years old, like they got to be like kind of toddler, young kid age, when Agatha Harkness and other characters like confronted Wanda and they were like, your kids aren't real, you created them, and then they went away, and that's something that started to drive Wanda insane. And then they erased her memory, and then she was like, I'm okay, and the whole memory of her having kids was taken from her, and until she learned about it later, and then everything got worse. But after that happened, after her kids like disappeared, they showed up again, sort of with their memories erased somewhere, and then they were like human kids, and then they were adopted by two different couples, and raised to about teenage years. And like it wasn't like an accelerated growth like in the show. Like they were just apparently 10 to 12 to 15 years later had passed, when really the Marvel timeline doesn't really have the time for that in a way. Like if you break everything down, the comic books that happened in the 60s were only supposed to take place about like 13 to 15 years ago from today, because the timeline keeps moving up so that everything can stay modern and current, except for World War II stuff, except for stuff that has hard dates in previous past events, historical events. So what I'm thinking is like, I think we're going to see the twins again. And when we do, they may bring in new actors to age them up, because those twin characters are superhero characters named Wiccan and Speed, and they join the Young Avengers. And the Young Avengers are already being set up with other elements of the MCU. Cassie Lang is a member of the Young Avengers. That's Ant-Man's daughter. We aged her up because, 5 years passed and now she's a teenager. Iron Lad is a character that's related to Nathaniel Richards, and Nathaniel Richards was just cast in Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania with the actor from Lovecraft Country. So it's like, okay, is that actor going to play? Is there going to be a version of that that's related to that actor and that character, Kang the Conqueror? Then we have Haley Steinfeld is playing Kate Bishop in the Hawkeye Disney Plus series. She's on the Young Avengers as well, I think. And now we have like Wiccan and Speed. And Skrulls are already in the mix, and one Young Avenger character is a Skrull who calls himself Hulkling, like a miniature Hulk. And the only one that's missing is a Captain America Young Avenger type character who is who's a black kid named Eli Bradley, and his grandfather was a character named Isaiah Bradley. And there's a great comic book storyline that came out about 20 years ago that's called Captain America Truth, Red, White, and Black, I think it's what it's called, which revealed before Steve Rogers was made Captain America, the United States government absolutely experimented on black men. And a bunch of them died with a version of the super soldier serum, but like one guy lived, and that's Isaiah Bradley. But because of the version of the formula that he had, or the trauma that he went through or whatever, he had kind of like some mental disabilities and mental handicaps, but he still became... He was a character, Isaiah Bradley, the first Captain America. He became a character that was so important and known to the black community in the Marvel Comics universe. Like he eventually went on, after World War II, he met civil rights leaders, like people like the black community knew about Isaiah Bradley, whereas white communities and everybody else in the world didn't, to them, Captain America was the Steve Rogers. He was the first guy. So the last missing element is this Eli Bradley character, the grandson of the guy I just described. Will the guy I just described be referenced in Falcon and the Winter Soldier? That's the question. Because in the trailers for that, Sam Wilson, the Falcon, he's saying the legacy of that shield is complicated. He says something to that effect, right? He's talking about the Captain America mantle. Will they bring up? I mean, maybe Patriot is rumored for Falcon and the Winter Soldier, but if not Patriot, at least, again, the seed planting of like, well, could this teenage kid show up at some point? So all this to say, when we see Tommy and Billy again, will they be the same kid actors, or will they bring them, will they somehow do some comic book shenanigans to be like their souls are reincarnated in these teenager bodies, or they grew themselves up and didn't know and lost their memories. And it'll be these new actors to be like, cool, now we're a part of. And then they revealed the Young Avengers, and it's everybody that I just kind of talked about. No idea, but that could happen. I'm just bringing up the weird wonkiness of the timeline of Marvel Comics may not translate, but they kind of figured it out in this show by just having the boys grow themselves, which was weird and funny and fit in the weird WandaVision TV show reality.
Yeah.
Well, and it's kind of good that they did go the route of them disappearing, and then if they come back reincarnating into like some other people who have had a normal life, because the idea of these kids becoming like getting aged up even further is kind of crazy, because then you end up with characters that are really only like,
a year or two old.
Old when they start saving the world.
So was their dad. Their dad was like 5 years old, like that.
Yeah, but he's a robot.
Yeah,
he was born yesterday.
That's right.
Well, what I find interesting is that the post-credit scene, she hears her kids' voices, and like maybe that's going to be related to the multiverse, because I assume, with her Doctor Strange kind of out-of-body experience reading the Darkhold, she is in Doctor Strange too, right? So maybe her motivation for helping him out or whatever is to get her kids back. But I'm starting to think it's a little bit weird in a cool way that like people, I'm just wondering how they're going to tie all that into the movie. If people are like, I'll skip the Disney Plus shows, and then like Wanda shows up and she's like, I have to save my kids, and they're like, what?
Yeah.
Well, and also they were playing some pretty ominous music while she was reading the Darkhold too. Like, I went back and watched that scene again before we started today, and yeah, they played like some straight up like villain theme song music while she was reading that book.
I think I read that it was actually taken from Doctor Strange. It was a theme.
Music?
Maybe so.
I think so. I think it was music that was also used in Strange just to help make that connection.
I feel like I think Danny Elfman is doing the music for Doctor Strange 2, I think, because
Yes,
Sam
I think
Raimi's
that's
directing it, which is really interesting. I liked Michael Giacchino's score. I thought it was okay, but I feel like Danny Elfman might even be a better fit to a Doctor Strange world. There's some great comments and stuff in the chat. The other thing that's really interesting about that is there's a great comic book that's called Doctor Strange and Doctor Doom, Triumph and Torment. And
That's a good one.
Oh, Ashton, you know about this, one of my favorites. And it's this great storyline where Doctor Doom is established, Doctor Strange is established. Part of Doctor Doom's backstory is that like his mother her soul was taken by demons and she's in hell. Like her soul is resting in hell. And I think it's either because she sacrificed herself to somehow magically, because she dabbled in magic as well when she was raising young Victor Von Doom, little Victor, and she did something to like put a seal on him or protect him, or so, like she did it self-sacrificially, I think, in some way, or she may have just straight up died. The point is that her soul is in hell, and I think it's for a reason because she did some bad stuff, and so her soul's in hell. So every year on the anniversary of his mother's death or birthday, Dr. Doom tries to go into hell to save his mom's soul, and he can never do it because he is also a world-class sorcerer as well, on top of being like an Iron Man-style technological genius.
Yeah, because he's in like the top 5 at pretty much everything. Yeah. And the only reason that he hasn't dominated the world is because he insists on fighting people at what they're good at. You know?
and his ego. I think that his ego trips him up to where
because he's like, I have to outsmart Reed Richards. If I use magic, then I would be cheating. You know,
right. I'll beat them at their own game. And I saw somebody, I think it was maybe like writer Dan Slott, comic book writer, maybe somebody else say the other day, like Dr. Doom is constantly expecting to fail because he always comes up with trap doors and little escape plans for his things if they go wrong. And the reality is like, yeah, wait a minute. If he really did have faith in himself 100%, he wouldn't have a trap door. He'd be like, my plan's going to work. So anyway, in this comic book, Triumph and Torment, Dr. Doom goes to Doctor Strange and he says, you're going to help me save my mother's soul from hell. And the whole comic book is them like reluctantly teaming up. And it's really interesting and it's really good. Maybe they're going to replace Doctor Doom with Scarlet Witch in Doctor Strange too, and maybe that's what it's going to be. Maybe those kids are not in another multiverse. Maybe they're in hell. Maybe those souls are trapped in hell, and Wanda is going to roll up to Stephen Strange like, "You got to help me get my kids."
Well, either that, or if it's not like literal hell, it could be like otherworld, they're in the dark hole dimension with Chthon or whatever.
Exactly. You know, the realms, the 9 realms that Thor and Asgard deal with. One of them is also called Hell, but with one L. And it's like that's just a big lava world where like, you know, Surtur the fire demon was sitting on that throne. So that's kind of or I think he was actually in Muspelheim or anyway.
Yeah, he was in Muspelheim.
Muspelheim, yeah.
Hell is like hell in the Asgardian thing is cold. And dark.
Yeah, that's right. It's like the underworld or something. Anyway,
and there's like a ship made out of fingernails. It's really weird.
yeah. But Doctor Doom, Doctor Strange, Triumph and Torment. Go read that comic book. It's really good. I think the art was even, or at least the covers, was by Mike Mignola, who's the creator of Hellboy. So it's it's a really good story. So
Jake in the chat has been. He's been a big fan of the idea of Wanda being the villain for the new Doctor Strange movie, but.
Could be that.
I like your idea better, and I think you just sold him on it too.
I think that she might end up kind of towing the line because she's like reading the Darkhold and learning things from it, and so I think we might end up like I don't think she's going to start out the villain, but she's going to definitely be like the person who's a good guy, but is kind of dabbling in stuff that maybe she shouldn't toy with, and then
they already set up the idea that she is stronger than the Sorcerer Supreme.
Yeah, and there's this prophecy that she's going to destroy the world.
Also that.
Yeah. I think looking at Thor Ragnarok might be a good template for like how they'll do that, because that's also a team up movie. That's a movie that brings in Hulk into the Thor world. And I think they did a pretty good job of it. And at first Hulk and Thor fight and it's fun, but then afterwards, you know, Hulk is this like, reluctant ally to Thor as well. Thor's like, this is the plan, we have to go do this, and Hulk's like, no, not going to do it, and then eventually they do, and it's fun. And so maybe it'll be similar. It's still going to be Doctor Strange's movie, but I think the way that they'll use Wanda, the amount of screen time, is she an antagonist, is she a threat, is she the team up buddy, I think it'll be kind of like that. But I mean, there's room for it all. I
was saying to Molly right before we were doing this just how smart it is that they keep doing kind of these team up movies. It is very smart, where if someone didn't go see Doctor Strange, but they're like, but I really liked WandaVision, so yeah, I want to keep watching that story, and now I'm into Doctor Strange and I liked that movie. And it's very smart.
Yes, exactly.
So and we got the scroll set up for Captain Marvel 2. I assume that's what that was.
Real quick, though, I want to ask, what is the Darkhold exactly? So why is it such a big, scary deal that she's reading it? Book of the Damned, I get that. I assume there's dark magic in it.
So yeah, so Chthon was an elder god. So he's like just super, super powerful. And like way before people came along, all the elder gods, except for Gaia, started basically cannibalizing each other. And so they all turned into demons. And so then Gaia was like, well, I have to deal with this now. So she created this like child character named Atun, who became like the God Slayer. And he went around and started killing all these demons. And so in order to escape that character, Chthon created a pocket dimension to hide in. And he went in there and went to sleep. And he created this book called The Darkhold to be like his tether back to the material world, like the real plane. And so, and now through other course of other stories, he's actually like banished to his pocket dimension and can't come back to Earth unless people invite him back to Earth through like rituals and things.
Kind of similar to Dormammu, honestly. Again, like maybe they'll do away with this Chthon character altogether, but maybe the Darkhold will be a Dormammu thing. Who knows? People are already pointing out, if you go back and watch the Doctor Strange movie, when Stephen Strange is in the library, like there's a book missing. Maybe that's the Darkhold. It's like maybe, but also they would be smart to just leave a couple of things, open for. It's because it's a library. Maybe other wizards were just
someone's going to write something.
Well, whatever.
I mean,
It
does kind of make sense that it could be the Darkhold though, because there's also other ties to like one of the other elder gods that disappears before they all started becoming demons is one of the entities that makes up the Vishanti, which is the god thing that all of the Sorcerer Supreme people sort of focus on for the most part.
They study like the Book of the Vishanti, and the Darkhold again is also like that's where Chthon put all of his like teachings is in there. Like through the ages, I feel like maybe I'm wrong, but like human sorcerers and people that were trying to dabble into evil stuff, they were like getting influenced by him, writing stuff down. Like it's all his knowledge is housed in there, so it's very, very bad.
And all the parchments are indestructible, and so they can't destroy the book. But it has like a dozen times somebody's been like, wow, well, we'll rip all the pages out and scatter them across the earth, and then they immediately get put back together into a book by somebody. Like, it never works.
That's right. Yeah.
Okay.
There's always an evil book somewhere.
Molly, you brought up the setup for Captain Marvel 2. So I assume that the friend of her mom's was Nick Fury, because last we saw he was up in a space station.
Yeah,
that's right.
Yeah,
that's right. And even though that was the last time we saw him, that story takes place after WandaVision. So WandaVision takes place 3 weeks after Avengers Endgame, right? Something like that. We saw that real time of a few days or however long it takes for all of WandaVision to occur. That's still about 3 weeks after Endgame. Spider-Man Far From Home is months after Avengers Endgame. It's, the school year started again. They're on a trip in Europe. So, like, I think that her mom, Maria Rambeau's old friend, is Nick Fury. I feel like Maria and Nick may have stayed in touch over the years, because if Nick is over in S.H.I.E.L.D., maybe that's how Maria ended up founding or being a part of S.W.O.R.D. and then focusing on space with Maria's, like, background. And, S.H.I.E.L.D. was able to kind of help set that up. I don't know. It seems like that is the space equivalent to S.H.I.E.L.D. at this point. And maybe we'll see Monica Rambeau up in that space station that Nick Fury was in. And maybe we'll see them in Captain Marvel 2. So it's, I feel like that's most likely what it's going to be. Her being upset with Carol, I feel like will absolutely be resolved and touched on in Captain Marvel 2. And Talos, when he was disguised as Nick Fury, was also upset with Carol in Spider-Man Far From Home, again, a few months after this story, because Spidey brings up Captain Marvel because he's like, what about Thor? What about, because Nick Fury's like, we need you, Spider-Man, like, we need you here. He's like, what about this? What about that? What about Captain Marvel? And he goes, don't invoke her name. And I'm like, okay, is he mad at her or is he protective of her? I don't know, but I think it's all going to get resolved and explained and explored in Captain Marvel 2.
Huh. You brought up Sword, and we were talking about Photon is her name, right? Her superhero name,
or Spectrum,
or Spectrum,
or Captain
Can we
Marvel.
talk about her being Hayward shooting at children, and then like the bullets?
The worst. He
went from like kind of a nuanced, like interesting bad guy to just straight, I'm gonna shoot kids. What? I don't know what was going on there, but so she can like have things phase through her.
Well, she can turn into energy. And so I think the idea is that she turned into energy and then she was like absorbing the energy of the bullets going through her.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
And then they dropped.
Yeah. And then her eyes glowed a little brighter. Huh.
And her eyes glowed. It looks like, depending on what she's doing when she's, using her powers, because when her eyes glowed blue, then we cut to her perspective in that episode where she punctured through the hex wall. Then she saw the whole world in this weird blue wavelength. And I was explaining to my girlfriend, because that was happening, and my girlfriend, Abby, she was like, what the hell is happening? And I'm like, she can see every form of the electromagnetic spectrum. She can see every form of energy. She can see it, and then she can also turn her body into it to any type of energy. She can just turn her body into it and shoot out blasts and fly around and move literally at the speed of light, and a bunch of different powers. She's immensely powerful. But I think what happened in the show, too, was this last episode was I think it's supposed to represent like she's figuring out her powers. So she's not going to be the most powerful. And, she didn't move at the speed of light to stop Hayward. Instead, she's like, what's going on? And then as a bullet was getting shot at her, she like instinctively was like, I'll turn into this energy, I think, because I don't want the bullet to do something. So her body's like, okay, you don't want the bullet to do something. So we'll absorb the energy, like Ashton was saying, the kinetic energy, whatever. And then the bullet dropped out from behind her. So.
Well, and I think that in the comics, she also is one of those characters who her power almost like subconsciously protects her. And so, it's entirely possible that she was just trying to jump in the way of the bullets.
I didn't get the sense that she thought she was going to live through that.
And then her power just like activated without her even attempting to do that.
That would be great. I can't wait to see her come into her own with her powers, though. Like to really, I'm hoping that's what happens in Captain Marvel 2, is that she shows up, it's months later, it's months after this show, and she's like, what's up? Great. What do we need? And she's full on like, I can do anything. I figured it all out. That would be great.
Yeah.
Well, and there's the potential for them to jump forward like that because of what you were saying with the timeline, So that would be cool.
Yeah.
We touched on this a little bit before you dropped in, Hector, but I wanted to talk about the two visions. I love that Paul Bettany was just trolling, saying that he wanted to work with himself.
Great.
But yeah, we were talking about the ship of Theseus and how like that battle, while it started like flying through the air, punchy, like it got to just a discussion, and the way that resolved, we really liked that. So
it was great.
I love that they used an actual thought experiment too. Like,
you're familiar with the ship of Theseus? Naturally.
Yes. Secondly, I request elaboration. I thought that whole thing was very, very, very Vision. I mean, Vision might be one of my favorite characters in the MCU, just because I feel like he's mostly been written pretty perfectly. Writers have really figured out what he would say, how he says it. His introduction in Age of Ultron, he's the best thing about Age of Ultron. He lifts Mjolnir. I'm already like, I love this so much. It's so great. And then he has those lines towards the end of Age of Ultron where he's like, a thing is not beautiful because it lasts. And Ultron's like, you're unbearably naive. And he goes, well, I was born yesterday. It's just like this perfect, great take on this character. And that was also a great exercise in that too. Like a great example of how Vision would defeat Vision. Well, Vision is cool. Vision is very, very cool. I really liked it a lot. I think we'll see White Vision again.
I was going to ask, where did he go? Because that was something that just, he flew off and we were like...
Yeah.
I mean, he might... Yeah. I mean, he could really go almost anywhere because, I mean, as an android, he could literally be shooting off into space. and becoming part of the cosmic storyline with Guardians of the Galaxy and stuff. We have no idea. He could
He's
He's
up
not
hanging out
show
with
up anywhere.
Dr. Manhattan on what was it, Mars?
Yeah, guess I'll go to
Yeah.
Mars.
He
Yeah.
does not go to Prague to see Spider-Man on his school trip. We know that at least. We do know
Yeah.
that Vision does not show up in Spider-Man Far From Home.
Unless he's just phasing through everything the whole time and invisible.
Unless he put on a costume and he was the bus driver,
Yeah.
Dimitri, which would be great. I think he went to a snowy mountaintop to contemplate his existence. I think he does a classic superhero thing and does fly off somewhere and considers who he is. I think that the conditional Vision, this construct Vision, was a beautiful character, and we'll never see him again. But I think that Wanda explained, "You are I created you from like the memory of you, and also you're the piece of the Mind Stone that was in me." So I think Wanda's the key. I think when she sees White Vision again, and I think she will see him again, she might do it again and put the Mind Stone in him and finally unlock the last missing piece of what would make Vision Vision. Because we saw in Avengers Infinity War when everybody was debating trying to take the thing out to destroy it so Thanos wouldn't get it. They're like, well, if we can go in there and do this in Wakanda, and maybe we can save the best parts of Vision. He has the body. Now he has the memories because, construct conditional Vision unlocked it in him. The last thing he's missing is the soul. Really, again, that's another confirmation that there's souls. And the soul coming from the Mind Stone. It could be Wanda that does it. However, I was saying this earlier today. If there's a storyline where Vision dies again, I think I would be fine with it, because at this point I'm so happy with everything they've been able to do with this character and Paul Bettany playing this character. If there's a version of the MCU where he does come back fully, Wanda cures him, and now it's Vision and he's in it for forever, also great, because I love the character. So, but there's nothing really left that I'm like, ooh, I wish he would stick around because I want to see this storyline adapted or whatever. Even the really critically acclaimed comic book that came out years ago, The Vision, where he builds his own family, I don't want to see that in the MCU, because that works in a comic book context where it's years and years and years removed from him and Scarlet Witch being in a relationship. So I think comic book fans are more open to like, okay, they broke up, they divorced, like it didn't work out. So now here's the Vision, now here's the Scarlet Witch, and they're separate. I don't think MCU fans are going to want to see that. I think if Vision is alive, he needs to be with Wanda. And I think so. White Vision, all memory, no heart. Exactly, Colonel Cactus.
Oops.
That's exactly it. That's exactly it. So Wanda will plug it in there, and there we go.
Yeah. I think that he's going to be gone for a while, probably. But I think it would be really cool to see him come back once they get sort of near the end of whatever they see as Wanda's storyline within the MCU. Like whenever they do get around to the point of like, okay, we're going to kind of put her in the, into the background for a while, or maybe she disappears or something. Having Vision come in at the end of that would be really fun to see, because they do have the whole thing about like that they're going to see each other again,
Yeah.
Which was very nice. I loved that writing.
Now that he has all the memories, including the memories of their children, I'm wondering if whenever the children show back up, that's when we see White Vision show back up.
But he doesn't have those memories, because the White Vision has the memories of him being Jarvis all the way up to when he was killed by Thanos. And then him being brought back by Sword and Hayward, and then being sent to go kill Wanda or the Vision or whatever. The Vision who has the memories of his kids is the one that Wanda made up. Yeah. So that's going to be an interesting conflict. Is that if White Vision comes back and he becomes fully Vision, like the one we know and love from the original films, Wanda's going to be like, and also here's your sons. And he's going to be like, I don't know that. Like, I didn't raise them, even in that fake sitcom world. Like, I wasn't there. So that could be really interesting too.
That would be kind of similar to the comics also, because in the comics, Wiccan and Speed are like, oh, Scarlet Witch, we finally found you. You're our mother. And she's like, yes, I am. And then they meet Vision and he's like, what?
Exactly.
I'm envisioning White Vision will return like Darcy does in this episode. Like they'll be fighting Dormammu, and then like at the last second, White Vision is going to be like, oh yeah, he's in this.
That was a really fun moment in this episode when Vision showed up to like take out White Vision when he was fighting Wanda for a second. That was a really cool, like superhero save the day kind of moment. That was really fun to see.
Wanda, where are the boys? Inside. Yeah, that was great. It was really fun. Yeah.
So what do we think about Ralph Boner. And what is going on there? Was that ever meant to be Quicksilver?
Before Hector jumped on, I was just like, my big question is still Pietro. What's his deal? Was that Pietro Quicksilver? Who is Ralph? What was the necklace? I have so many questions.
Well, I think you know just about as much as I do or as Ashton does. I think that it is a little bit up to interpretation. I know a lot of people are saying disappointing reveal, but I would ask those who were disappointed by that reveal, Billy Sunrider, such a lame twist. I would ask, really do the thought experiment of fully thinking out, follow it to its logical conclusion, what else it could or should have been in those expectations. If you did want it to be Quicksilver from another universe, who we've seen him in movies before, what does that mean? What would that mean? Would that mean that the Fox X-Men movies are another universe and that they happened and that we can access them? And because now there's a Pietro here in this universe, what happens to the Aaron Taylor Johnson Quicksilver? Does that, what does that mean for that character? That character still lived and died. Does that mean that James McAvoy and Michael Fassbender are Xavier and Magneto in the MCU somewhere? There's a lot of stuff that it could lead to that I don't think is necessarily good. And I think that it's funny that it's a troll. It was messing with us, this casting choice. And it was different. It's similar but different to the J.K. Simmons as J. Jonah Jameson. Because nobody at the end of Spider-Man Far From Home, no fans were like, oh, multiverse confirmed. That's J. Jonah Jameson from the Sam Raimi universe. Like, nobody thought that. But this is different because it does. First of all, we do know that Wanda is going to end up in a movie with the word multiverse in it. So I think all MCU fans are thinking about that. Whereas, people like my mom and whoever else who are watching WandaVision, they don't know about the upcoming Doctor Strange movie. So that's a little removed. But secondly, I think that it's I don't see it as a flex so much, but I saw it as a meta reference. It's just acknowledging that there were two Quicksilvers at the same time in movies. Ha ha ha. That's so interesting that ended up happening that way. And what if we could, let's have fun with that, and we'll bring back Peter Evans to fit that role of, we want to have a version of Quicksilver in this show, but he's an agent of Agatha because she's messing with her. And we'll make it seem as though Wanda herself recast him because it fit the TV trope, right? Of recasting a character. I think that's what it is. I think SDS Sarah Cherico saying, you're wrong, Hector. I don't know what I'm wrong about, but all I'm saying is I think this is an instance where fans might be overthinking something. And I think that overthinking is kind of missing the point of this, which is it's just a casting sort of a troll. In terms of some of those questions, Molly, I feel like the necklace was just a way for Agatha to control this guy, the same way that Wanda was controlling with no necklaces or anything, but just like in people's brains and making them be part of the construct. Do fans ever underthink anything? Yeah, I think sometimes they do. Rain Man MP, I think that they do.
Every once in a while.
Yeah.
Here's my question. Or go ahead, Ashton.
I was just going to say, I think that you also hit the nail on the head with something that is, I think that the fact that they did that this way, it represents some good things. I mean, everybody's really focused on being disappointed because fan theories didn't pan out and it's not some crazy comic book style multiverse thing. But what it tells me is that when they do incorporate mutants in the MCU, and I'm sure they will eventually because it's a really popular property that they have the rights to now, but when they do, they're likely going to recast most everybody. Yeah. Which I'm excited about, because as much as I liked the X-Men movies that we've already gotten them. We've seen who Michael Fassbender's Magneto is. We've seen who Patrick Stewart's Xavier is. We've already seen those characters. So seeing new actors fill those roles and do things with it is exciting. But it also tells us they just did this to mess with us. But what that tells us is they're not afraid to recast the same actor if they feel like it. You know what I mean? If they do the whole casting process on the X-Men characters and they feel like an actor who's interested in playing the same character again is the best option, they'll go with it. And I think that's a cool thing for them to illustrate.
They kind of soft confirmed with Jamie Foxx as Electro. where they announced that he's coming back as Electro, and everybody immediately was like, multiverse. But then Jamie Foxx, apparently, I never saw it, had an Instagram post where he's like, hey guys, I'm not playing the same character I did before. Don't expect me to be Blue, but we're giving this another go, and I think I can bring something to this character of Electro. So it's like, yeah, maybe they did just do that. Maybe it's a shortcut. Maybe it's both. Maybe it's because they do like that actor. I mean, they brought back J.K. Simmons because nobody else could really play J. Jonah Jameson. I get
Exactly.
I mean, I think that there's still room for this whole multiverse thing to work out. If we see in the Multiverse of Madness and they go and they're like, oh my God, there's like the X-Men universe and it is Quicksilver. That's odd that like worked out. But in our reality, he was just Ralph Boner. Like, I think there's room for that. But I am confused as to why he has super speed.
Somebody said it in the chat. I mean, it may be that, first of all, I just think that Agatha gave him the powers. And secondly, somebody said, was the necklace the thing that gave him the powers? Maybe, probably. Yeah. I mean, that could make sense because.
So you can just magically imbue someone with powers.
I think so.
There are also magic items. You know what I mean? Like things can be enchanted to give people special properties all the time in Marvel Comics.
Yeah. So, I mean, we saw that in Doctor Strange.
It's possible that necklace wasn't just a necklace. Like there might have been something special about that necklace. It might not really be important, so we might never explore it. But maybe that's what it was, Because it's like, oh, can Agatha just give super speed to anybody? That would be kind of crazy. Maybe it's that she had some kind of special thing that she enchanted to do it,
I also think too that like out of all the characters to fake, Quicksilver is pretty easy because this thing is just super speed. And it's a pretty physical power. It's not like she had to fake, oh, here's another Scarlet Witch and this fake person in the town. I'm just giving them the ability to read minds, telekinesis, manipulate reality, create matter. Like Quicksilver is just real easy. It's just super speed, And the other thing too is I think the character, we never got the confirmation. I know that the joke is that it's Boner. I'm pretty sure the character's name is like, what was it, Ralph Bonner? It's Bonner, but the time that Monica brings it up, it's when he's still controlled by Agatha. Does he turn over and go, Boner? And I'm like, I bet you as soon as she freed him and he's like, please spare me. And she said, nice to meet you, Ralph. I bet you if she was like, is it Ralph Boner? He would go, it's Bonner. I'm just an actor. I'm just trying, but I don't know. It's funny. It could be funny.
I did appreciate that they gave us a Ralph. Like they finally,
yeah.
I'm sorry it wasn't
her cat.
The devil.
I'm sorry it wasn't the devil.
Yeah. I'm seeing some people in the chat like talk about the idea of them trolling us, and we've thrown around that word a couple of times, but I don't think they were trying to be mean about it or mean spirited. I don't know.
Yeah, I think we're so used to it's unfortunate to say, I think we're so used to the word troll as being described like really awful human behavior online, when in reality the word should mean like just messing with, just ribbing you. And it's like I think Marvel Studios was doing that. I don't think they were being horrible to us. It's the way trolls are.
It's one of those things where if this had been a Netflix binge model, we wouldn't have batted an eye at it. But because we got to speculate every week and it was super fun, we got these ideas in our heads. But if we had just watched all 9 episodes at once, we'd have been like, oh, that was fun. Like,
Totally. Yeah. Yeah, I really liked it. I am looking forward to what they're going to do with X-Men and mutants. And I think that whole side too. I think a lot of fans do overthink that stuff when it comes to the MCU. I think it's going to be a lot more simpler than a lot of folks are coming up with explanations for and reasons for. I think it's just going to be simpler. The same with like, Monica Rambeau being upset at Carol. I'm seeing a lot of people like, why is she upset at Carol? Why? And I'm like, I think that might just be simple. We know the reason we saw it. It's because she feels like Carol Danvers abandoned their family, because she left in 1995 and presumably didn't come back until Thanos snapped everybody. So who knows, Some stuff I think is going to be a little bit more simple and on the nose than we think, and some stuff is going to be fun. And again, a great example is Mysterio in Spider-Man. Mysterio's technology coming from the barf thing that Tony Stark invented. I'm like, I don't think anybody saw that coming. I think that's a really brilliant connective thread, and I'm not mad at that at all. And it's different from the comic books, and who cares? But the basic core like relationships and ideas from Marvel Comics. I think they're mostly sticking to those mostly. So, yeah.
Yeah, I would definitely, as like the more casual fan, I feel like they simplify a lot of things, because then when I talk to Ashton or people like you, Hector, I'm like, there is so much more going on in the background, which obviously I've known that, but like, man, they dumb it down, I think, to someone who I'm like, I'm just here to watch and have a good time.
Because these shows and movies, they're not for Ashton and I. Unfortunately, they're not. They have us already. We're in hook, line, and sinker. Like they don't have to convince us to watch a Marvel thing. They have to convince everybody else on the planet. They have to convince my mom, and that's who they're making these properties for. Sorry, Ashton. It's unfortunate. I'm sorry.
Well, I don't know. I'm gonna disagree with you for a second,
Okay.
because I think that one thing that they do actually do sometimes, a lot of the time actually, is they'll drop little Easter eggs into the movies that make it so that people that are really invested in it have that sort of, Alex has mentioned this before, that like Cobb Vanth moment, like from The Mandalorian, where you're like, okay, so with that Easter egg being there, you can kind of actually extrapolate that this thing that they didn't even really mention specifically does exist in this universe.
Yep.
If you want to think about it that way.
Yep.
And it doesn't always have to match perfectly. Because if you're a big fan of the story, sometimes you're willing to be like, okay, so it'd be a little bit different, but okay, yeah, that character is that crazy cosmic entity, and that's where they're getting their powers from. Like you can do that sort of leap, and it's fun.
But I totally get what you're saying, Hector, because like that's in the Star Wars, like Molly and I talk about this all the time, where people will get, I mean, sometimes it happens with Cobb Vanth, and I'm thrilled by it. But usually people are like, oh, do you think this book character is going to show up, or this one or this one? I'm like, no.
Yeah.
Like they're not going to be able to explain who this person is and how they're relevant to this story. But yeah, like they're making the movie for just like, my parents that are like, I like Star Wars, and I'll go see every single one of them with you, Alex.
Like that's their first concern, is making sure that anybody can walk in and enjoy the movie and everything. And I think that's the way to do it, because if they don't do it that way, then you end up with a series that most people are not going to enjoy.
But I do think Marvel. Go ahead, Molly.
Or sorry, I was talking about Star Wars. It reminded me of in The Last Jedi, when we see inside Luke's hut, we see the compass from Pilio, and that's like a callback to the video game and Battlefront. But then people take that, and then there's also a necklace there with a red kyber crystal, and they're like, oh, whose kyber crystal is that? Where did it come from? And it's like, it doesn't matter.
Like Maz Kanata said, a story to be told another time.
That's definitely.
Well, and there's like in the MCU, there's scenes like when you get to see the collector's collection and stuff, and then there's all these different theories about all of those things. And if
sometimes
you are like a big comic book thing,
it
does sometimes.
Hela, they had to show Hela push over the Infinity Gauntlet, being like fake, and it's like, okay, good, okay, that was an inconsistency. Thank you guys for addressing it. Yeah, that's right. You had multiple Infinity Gauntlets because you didn't know when you were going to introduce it, and you put it in Odin's throne room. And thank you for fixing that. Not a big deal, but thanks.
It's for sure. Like I was going to say that I think Marvel does a better job of just more openly or more explicitly sprinkling out those Easter eggs. And Molly, I'd like forgotten about that compass one, and that's a great one. But it does. Anytime you do that, all the nerds like us will go like, "Yeah, what does it mean?" And it's like it doesn't mean anything.
It doesn't really.
It's just for you to go like, "Oh, it's that thing," and that's fun.
Yeah.
I think too much about it.
I think Marvel's really lucky in that their stuff goes back to 1961, and in some cases even earlier. And there's so much, even with like a character like Agatha Harkness, you could go and look at so many comic books and be like, what's a weird little detail we can pull that, like you guys are saying, really won't mean anything for the story, but like, what's something we can, okay, she's always wearing this brooch. Cool. We'll have it on every one of her outfits. And it's just a fun little detail thing. Yeah.
Now that I've said that, I'm like immediately thinking of like, oh, Solo is filled with Easter eggs that are like, it's all behind the scenes at Dryden, Paul Bettany again. His office is full of Legends references and stuff.
That movie gives us the reason why there are missing pieces on the holo chessboard, because
that too.
It.
Oh, great. I love that.
Yeah, no, that reminded me, Agatha, there was something else I wanted to talk about with her. Do you think that she's actually like trapped, or do you think she's faking it, basically?
That's a great question. I think she is, because I think the show is telling us Wanda is so effing powerful. And I also think that when she's like, "You're going to need me," and Wanda goes, I'll know where to find you. I'm like, okay, they're just going to store that character here in New Jersey until really Wanda will need her and we'll go and get her, whether it's Doctor Strange or some other future Marvel movie, which is great. So I think that she is going to be trapped, just because I don't think that it's kind of like how there's still characters that are like in custody in the MCU, including like the Abomination from the first Hulk movie.
Which he's going to be in She-Hulk, isn't he?
Yeah, exactly. And it's why? Because he's been sitting in that cell this entire Justin Hammer is in jail somewhere right now, and I'm sure they'll bring him back for like Armor Wars or some other Iron Man centric thing. So I think sometimes they do like to have these pieces on the chessboard like put in place to be like, and we'll get to you. We're going to put a pin in you, and we'll get to you in 8 years, like stuff like that. So I think that'll be Agatha.
And I'm almost certainly thinking too much about it, but the line with them where she's like, I'll see you around Agatha or Agnes, and then she says, "Not if I see you first," and it's probably just her goofy neighbor, reply. Yeah. But it did seem kind of like it might be, I want
to see the leader as well, Hudsonizer. I want to see Tim Blake Nelson come back as the leader. I think. It would be great.
Yeah, I forgot about that too.
I have a bunch of stuff that I'm like, hey, you guys got to bring this back from this old MCU, But they mostly do it. They mostly have brought back most stuff. I'd like to see Liv Tyler again. I don't know. I think that would be really cool.
Liv Tyler. Yeah, there's a lot of characters like that.
Well, I think she said in an interview fairly recently that she was interested in reprising that role.
Bring her back. Listen,
I think unless I'm thinking of someone else.
People did not enjoy the Bruce Banner Natasha Romanoff romance. I get it. It's a little weird. It was it wasn't executed so great. And unfortunately, Black Widow died. And I don't want Betty Ross to be like a rebound type thing. But if we're going to retire Mark Ruffalo, if he's no longer going to be like an active member of the MCU, whether he dies off or just retires or whatever, if we're bringing in She-Hulk, if the plan is to set up future Hulks like Amadeus Cho or whatever to carry on the legacy, then have Bruce Banner be with Betty again. Maybe they could retire together. I don't know. Maybe he could also use a happy ending. Maybe I don't know. Maybe
permanently turns into the Hulk and goes to Tibet or whatever.
That's really fun. I mean, they could. They have enough. I'm sure Disney could pull the strings to be like, we own the likeness to Mark Ruffalo as a big green CG creature, so we can use him forever. Okay, great.
What did everyone think of the costume? The Scarlet Witch official look.
I thought it was great.
A couple people were posting pictures of it next to Magneto's and like showing how it's a little bit similar. And I was like, ooh.
That's
but
fun.
yeah,
similar color. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I really like the headdress crown thing. I thought that they did a good job of translating that. And
I like the hood variant too when she flew away. I thought it was cool that they actually had like kind of a permutation of the costume as well.
Mm-hmm. We saw she did it in this episode, and Agnes's mother did it in the previous episode. Like when they're using their powers, they would get like this little energy crown. Is that anything?
I think
just something cool.
Honestly, I think that's just a justification for having the Scarlet Witch like weird headpiece from the comics and in the costume. I think that's all it is. I think as soon as I saw the Agatha Harkness flashback sequence and her mother, who was like the Witch Queen or whatever, the Witch King, like started to grow that, I went, oh, that's very clever. That's how they're going to justify Scarlet Witch ending the show with that weird doofy looking thing from the comics. And it's
now it makes sense. It's not just a weird random headdress.
It was her witch, the mantle, the Scarlet Witch, like she's the king of all the witches or whatever. I feel like the MCU has done that with a couple of other. Why would Vision wear a cape? Because one of the first people he sees is Thor. And he's just looking him up and down. He's like, okay. And then he just like creates a cape. I'm like, great, done. Perfect. Who cares? These are all silly costumes, and the more justification-y reasons we can get for each of those, it's good. It's okay.
It's really funny because speaking of the silly costumes, that is something about the MCU movies that I've always been astounded by, is that they have this like, you can't put your finger on it, but they manage to do goofy costumes and make them look cool.
Yeah.
You know,
Just lean into it. Yeah, like X-Men didn't.
and it's like, I'll go watch shows like Arrow, for example, where I'm like, and nothing against Arrow, it's a fine show for what it is, but the costumes look so goofy in comparison.
Sometimes
to what
they do.
like MCU.
Sometimes that CW stuff and other TV shows and even other movies, sometimes they can nail it, but sometimes the act of trying to adapt a goofy costume is really tough to pull off, and sometimes they don't pull it off. And I think for the most part, the MCU, a huge part of its success can be attributed to their visual development team. They're amazing. These men and women are so good at translating those comic book looks and making it make sense and making it look good in the real world. It's awesome.
And not to be overly negative about Arrow. I mean, I'm glad that they try to pull off some of the comic book looks, but it's just like that budget that you get with the MCU and their art team. They just somehow put this like finishing touch on it that just makes it look amazing.
Yeah, I'm with you, Ashton. Like I've seen a lot of those DC TV shows, and I'm still happy that it's like, cool, you guys did the Atom, and he's wearing this big, costume. Like, I'll take it. I'll take what I can get. It's a lot of leather jackets. It's a lot of biker, like jackets and pants with different patterns on it. And I'm like, I'll take it. Whatever version of a costume we can get is great. But some of it does look a little bit like, okay, why are you even wearing that? Why would you? That makes no sense, So yeah.
I have one more question, but before we get to that, Hitman Hudson donated $1 in Streamlabs. Thanks so much. Said like the finale, didn't love it, but what do y'all think about? There's a theory that Bruce Campbell might play Uncle Ben in the MCU.
Oh boy, I hadn't heard that one.
I had not either.
I think he did just film in. Bruce Campbell did just post about he's like, I just filmed a thing in this city, and he was being super purposely vague. With this director, and I had a great time. And I think people were automatically being like, he's got to be in Doctor Strange too. They're filming it now. It's Sam Raimi. Like, he's got to be in it.
That makes sense.
I think him as Uncle Ben would be too distracting.
Mm-hmm.
I think back in the day, everybody wanted him to be Mysterio. And I think okay, that kind of fits with Bruce Campbell. I feel like I could have accepted that. Mm-hmm. But I don't know who he could be playing in Doctor Strange 2, if he's related to a Spider-Man character, if he's related to... Because also filming Spider-Man 3 right now, I believe. I don't know if they're done with that either. And the pictures just came out and everyone's like, oh, the Spider-Man kids are seeing Doctor Strange because they're looking up in a hallway, and then people were taking the shadow that was cast on them and being like, the only Avenger that has this hair shape is Dr. Stephen Strange, So I don't know. I don't know who Campbell could be, but I think my pick for Uncle Ben has always kind of been Tom Hanks or somebody like a Tom Hanks. Just because you look at Tom Hanks and you just feel warmth. You're like, oh, he's like everybody's dad. So I'm like, just let him be that in a flashback and that's it.
Mm.
And I don't know if he's the same age. He's probably older. I don't know, much older than Marissa Tomei. So I'm trying to find an actor that can kind of fit that, that age range and stuff. But, I don't want a fully involved Uncle Ben thing. That should just really be a flashback, if that at all. Versus they got the incredible Michelle Pfeiffer to be Janet Van Dyne, and she was basically a cameo in the last Ant-Man movie, but it's they could use her in any capacity that they want, going forward, either as the Janet that we know now, or even in the flashbacky type of stuff, because they kind of CG'd her face just like Kurt Russell, just like Michael Douglas, everybody. So I don't want something like that though for Uncle Ben. I don't need Uncle Ben. Yeah,
I'm trying to think of if they go into the multiverse and they see an alternate Avenger. I'm trying to think of who it would be funniest for Bruce Campbell to be.
Honestly, if they went to hell to save Billy and Tommy, I would just like him to be Ash. They're fighting demons for no explainable reason.
maybe even him as Mephisto, I think would even be more acceptable. I would be like, sure,
that'd be fun.
That could be fun. Mm-hmm. That could be really fun. Yeah, he's just such a funny guy that something like that would be great. But,
especially if Mephisto pops in almost not as a villain, but I could help you, but then they're like, no. Yeah.
not to knock the guy, because Bruce Campbell is a really great actor, but I think he lives in more of that kitschy, kind of tongue-in-cheek world. And if Mephisto is the villain of Doctor Strange 2, then you have to go and get, Matthew McConaughey or Leonardo DiCaprio. You got to go get these heavyweight actors to really, they got Christian Bale for Thor 4. That's the kind of stuff you have to do. But then they also have they've got Melissa McCarthy cameoing in Thor 4 as like another Asgardian who's dressing up in another play. I'm like, that's perfect. That's great. Because she's so funny, she's so great, and it's just going to be great to see Melissa McCarthy for a second in Thor, and then go from there, and not have the movie expect us to be like, okay, so Melissa McCarthy's the bad guy throughout. It's like, I don't know if that's going to work. So,
Okay, I have one more question, but it's about Falcon and the Winter Soldier. Does anyone want to talk about? Is there any last thing about WandaVision that people want to talk about, or we could just share our impressions of the show as a whole, which I thought was great. I had so much fun talking about it every week.
Mm.
I did too.
Yeah, I thought it was fantastic. Like, there is a lot of discussion online about people being disappointed about fan theories not coming to fruition, but honestly, it's like these filmmakers designed this show a certain way, and I'm sure that it's a better story for it not including Mephisto and all these little pieces, you know.
To echo what Ashton is saying, the show is going to be revisited later, especially, you know, before Doctor Strange 2 comes out. People are going to see it for the first time, or they're going to revisit the one season of WandaVision, and I think it's going to hold up. I think it's going to stand the test of time as its own thing. And when we're far removed from the keeping up with what the press is saying, keeping up with what the actors are saying in between each episode, you know, hyping up the show, even all of that aside, without any of that context, if I ever have a kid and I show them the MCU, I'm going to show them these movies in order. And then after Avengers Endgame, but before Spider-Man, I'm going to show WandaVision. And I think in that context, it's really going to work. It's going to really hit hard. And that's the reason I really loved the show overall. It's probably my favorite Disney Plus thing so far. Not to knock Mando. I love me some Mando. It's so good.
See you later, Hector. It's a shame.
okay, bye. But it's, you know, the way that your guys' heart in so many ways is Star Wars. I think Ashton and myself, we have such a huge space for Marvel and comics and stuff. I am just glad too that, like Alex and Molly, that you guys liked WandaVision, right? I'm more thrilled at that. No offense, Ashton. It's you and me liking the show again. It's kind of like no brainer. Of course. And we could talk about it for hours, but I'm stoked that it did what I was hoping it set out to do, which is to get folks like Alex and Molly to like be invested and give a shit about these characters and like the show. So
also yeah. Just like even getting away from like what happens in the show and, you know, that sort of thing, just seeing the quality of the writing and the acting and the effects and directing and everything that came together, it really does show that Disney and Marvel are putting their money where their mouth is. When they say they're going to make a show that's movie quality, they really mean it, which makes me very hopeful about their future, you know, TV show model projects.
Yeah, I always loved the character of Wanda, and like her moment in Infinity War was so badass. Like she could have taken on Thanos, and this just solidifies my love for her character, and also Elizabeth Olsen as an actress. Like,
yeah, she was great.
She nailed it, and she loves the character, which I think you can really see that in her performance.
Yeah. I'm so glad she was able to play. And maybe still keep playing that thing where she said in an interview before, I loved when Wanda loses her mind in the comics. That's my favorite thing. And within the context of this show, I don't think it's as controversial as, I know we talked about it last time, as some of the comic books have, you know, the past 10 years, like come under fire or 20 years. And it makes sense. I think that the context of the show allowed Elizabeth Olsen to play a Wanda Maximoff who loses it, but still is able to come back, but still could lose it further. Who knows what's going to happen? I think it's all good. I think Jack Schaefer, the showrunner writer, just did such an incredible job of really using that nuance and telling a female-driven story and having it not fall into tropes and get us excited about it and all of that. Yeah, those performances are so good. Yeah.
Do you think that where she went at the end was Wundagore?
Oh, man, I didn't think about that until just now, Ashton. Oh, my goodness. Maybe. It's very, very possible. That would be really cool. I'm such a nerd. As soon as I saw those mountains, even if it's like it looks like New Zealand or whatever, I went straight to, oh, is this Canada? Oh, we're about to see Wolverine. We're about to see Wolverine in the Canadian wilderness. Like, no, you idiot. And but that cabin did look like the same cabin that Edward Norton Hulk was like training in at the end of the Edward Norton Hulk movie, which is really
that's what I thought. I was like, oh, is she hanging out that same cabin?
Colonel Cactus says definitely Sokovia could be, and Mount Wundagore could be in Sokovia in this.
Yeah, in the MCU, it could be in Sokovia.
Yeah, because the Marvel comics, I don't think have a Sokovia. I think that's an invention for the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So, could be cool. Yeah. Okay. What's the question about Falcon and Winter Soldier?
Yeah. Well, next week I know they're they're doing behind the scenes for WandaVision, kind of like they've done with The Mandalorian in the past. But then, in 2 weeks we have Falcon and the Winter Soldier. I just figured, what's everyone looking forward to? What do we think? What are you expecting from this? Because I'm kind of thinking it'll be more just like action, fun, fast paced, and less thoughtful than WandaVision, which I think is great that they are like doing different types of stories on Disney Plus for these series. But I just wanted to know what you guys were expecting.
I'm really hoping. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Molly.
I was just going to say, there was a good amount of humor in WandaVision, but I'm mostly excited for the humor and all the jokes. It's like a buddy cop movie.
Yeah, their chemistry.
Just between the two of them, I'm excited for that.
Yeah.
I'm also hoping that they sort of dip into the like Captain America, Winter Soldier, like political thriller kind of vibe theme of it. Maybe pull some of that back, so it's not just an action adventure kind of movie. Maybe they have some fun, some of that kind of genre thrown into. That would be fun.
I said it. I think it'll be less thoughtful. I mean maybe just less slow. But I absolutely think this will be a story with something to say, especially from what we've heard about Sam's side of it.
Yeah. Super Romero in the chat says, total dad show. Can't wait. Maybe. Yeah. I love that. I agree. I'm hoping that as thoughtful as WandaVision was in exploring the themes of like people and women dealing with trauma, and some of the stuff that Monica Rambeau was dealing with as a woman and as a Black woman, with some of like the little microaggressions and stuff that Hayward was throwing her way, kind of towards from the middle to the end. I am hoping that Falcon and Winter Soldier does go into some of the social issues that the United States and the world are dealing with today, with the fact that Captain America gave his shield to a Black man. How is the world going to react? What's the U.S. agent's role in all of this? Or like that character, is he supposed to be the government appointed Captain America? And why did they pick him? And why wouldn't they? I would just love for the MCU to go into a little bit more than some really interesting stuff that we saw in the Black Panther movie, and then a couple of lines here and there in scattered throughout movies, including in Captain America: The Winter Soldier, where Nick Fury is next to those white cops and he looks them over and they're checking him up and down, and he's like, "Want to see the lease?" And it's like a little acknowledgement of like the world we live in and the world they live in, and what Nick Fury as a Black man probably has dealt with to get to the position he's in and stuff. So I'm hoping if any of these shows does that, it's got to be this one. Loki is going to be interesting because I'm like, Loki is the most wild card show because it's not even our Loki technically. It's that alternate reality Loki. So it's like, what sort of themes are they going to explore there, which is going to be really fun. But the other thing for Falcon and Winter Soldier, I'm hoping we get some confirmation of Elijah Bradley as being maybe the first Captain America, a Black man who was experimented on before they perfected it and put it over to Steve Rogers, or before Abraham Erskine was involved, or whatever the heck, because that character could lead to seed planting of the character named Patriot, who's again a part of the Young Avengers. I feel like that's the last Young Avengers piece of the puzzle that's missing, is this Patriot / Isaiah Bradley / Captain America legacy. And if any show is going to do it, it could be this one, just to something, just to kind of set that up. Colonel Cactus says, I think we'll definitely get Patriot's granddad and the race politics there. Don't know how to spell it. Sorry. Granddad? Patriots? You got everything right. Spelled everything correct. So I'm looking forward to all of that. And what else am I kind of hoping for? I think that's pretty much it. And I'm hoping that it is really fun, because Wanda and Vision was the love story, and this is the buddy cop story. Their dynamic is so great.
Yeah.
I'm hoping for some tie-ins, because like I really like when these shows and movies tie together, because that's such a like comic booky sort of thing, and they do it really well in the MCU, and they've just been getting better and better at it over time, really. And so I'm looking forward to some unexpected tie-ins. Was WandaVision always supposed to come out before Falcon Winter Soldier?
After
I think
was-
Falcon was supposed to be the first. Yeah.
Okay, because I was thinking, I don't know, maybe Sword is going to be a thing. It still could be.
Yeah.
That would be interesting to see if, like this is the introduction to Sword, and we're already like, we know you're dicks.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
Alex, you told me earlier, and I didn't even think about this, that had COVID not happened, we would be getting Doctor Strange 2 pretty soon
I
after.
think May 7th was the original.
Yeah,
release
pretty
date.
soon. Yeah, pretty soon after having seen WandaVision. So, it's like some of this stuff might be a little jumbled up. It'd be interesting to see how that happens, how that plays out.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, all of the timeline stuff I'm really interested in. When does Falcon and the Winter Soldier take place? Right after Avengers Endgame? Is it a month? Is it a couple months after? Like, what's the state of the world? We got to see a little bit of it with this New Jersey storyline in WandaVision, but like we just got to see this town kind of, suffering from that, and then WandaVision took over. We got to see a little bit of it in Spider-Man Far From Home, but it was also kind of comedically used where all the kids were coming back during the snap, and that thing in WandaVision was devastating, right? When Monica was coming back.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot of story potential to explore when it concerns the snap and people coming back and Thanos and all that stuff. But like you're saying, Molly, when does Doctor Strange 2 take place? Does it take place right after WandaVision? Does it take place? Remember, Spider-Man Far From Home ends on a cliffhanger where his identity gets revealed. So presumably Spider-Man 3, No Way Home, is going to pick up right after that. And all of this is in the year 2023. This is all happening in the year 2023, right? 5 years removed from when Thanos snaps. So we're not even there yet in our world. This is 2021. We're 2 years away from catching up to them. And are the rest of these movies going to keep pushing everything forward, or are the rest of these shows and movies going to just tell us what happens right after the snap or right before the snap? Like, I'm just so fascinated by all of that and kind of lining everything up and seeing how all that stuff works. So, yeah.
Well, and also getting back to what I was mentioning about WandaVision, kind of like making me excited about the future stories. It's also that I don't know about you, but when I was going into WandaVision and what I was expecting with that show, I was not expecting it to have as many like wide-ranging effects on the MCU as a whole, because I was used to like Daredevil and Luke Cage and those shows that were on Netflix where they really couldn't affect the MCU very heavily because they didn't want people to have to go and watch those shows in order to understand what was going on with the movies.
Even Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. was like, okay, we've told the Avengers where the scepter is, so you can go watch Age of Ultron. Like, it, like really minor,
really minor effects. But like WandaVision was, I mean, that was just like another MCU movie as far as how much it actually impacted.
That's what I'm wondering, if you're going to get to Multiverse of Madness and be like, oh my God, you'd be lost if you didn't watch that.
Yeah.
I've got faith. I've got faith that Marvel Studios knows that they're going to put out a Doctor Strange movie that people will not have seen WandaVision. People that don't even have Disney Plus are going to go see Doctor Strange 2.
Right.
And I'm positive that they'll be able to catch everybody up and provide the context. And I'm hoping and I'm positive. I'm hoping that these shows are going to be that extra exploration. And like the comic books, I can hand people some big comic book events. There's where all the Avengers get together and they're going to introduce this cool big character. And if you care about this character, here's their own solo series for 2 years until they show up again in the next event. The movies are the events. The shows are going to be that character piece, the Falcon and the Winter. What is the Falcon character? What is the Winter Soldier? What's Bucky actually like? We barely know him.
Yeah. Well, and I love that because it's, again, pulling even more of that comic book feel into the MCU, because that's how the comic books all are, where it's like you have the big event sort of comic runs and then you've got everybody splits off on their own individual issues,
There's so many people during WandaVision, the first few weeks especially, it's building up hype. And I saw so many people online being like, do I need to watch all the Marvel? And anytime I hear that question, I just get to a point where I'm like, just watch whatever you want to watch. That's it. And if you care enough, it just doesn't make sense to my brain. And I'm sure Alex and Molly, you guys are like this with Star Wars, where you're like, how could you not want to experience everything? How could you not want to read every book, play every game, watch every show, like every cartoon, every movie? How could you not want to? So I know that people are not like us. So when they go, which one movies do I need to watch? I just go, look, watch whatever you're interested in. And if you really care afterwards, I'll send you a list. I'll send you, whatever checklist you're trying to go off of. And I still can see people online that they're like, I went back and tried to do the Marvel movies and I saw the wrong Hulk movie. I saw the one with Eric Bana. And I'm like, how do you make that mistake? How do people not do that research? And I know that it's tough and it's especially daunting. I get that. And I don't want to pressure anybody. But I think that if and when people do become fans, especially for stuff like this, and maybe I think we can all agree too, that there's like a click that goes off in your head where you go, I'm a fan. I'm going to watch all these movies. I don't care if I miss some of them. I don't care if I've seen some of them. I'm going to rewatch them. And I don't care if people are telling me, you don't have to see that. You don't know. You can skip that one, because it's like, no, you kind of can't. I can't tell people to skip Thor: The Dark World anymore, because I'm like, well, it pays off in Avengers End. Like, I don't know what to tell you. Like, they're all they have the potential of paying off. This is a franchise that's not done. If I were to tell somebody to go watch the X-Men movies, I might go watch like 4 X-Men movies, because those movies are done. They're not still making more, right? So, I do think they managed to pull off the effect of, if all you really want to, if you walk up to, the theater and you see that Avengers is playing, having seen none of the other movies, and you go in and watch it, you're still going to probably be entertained, and you're going to be like, okay, this was a movie about these superheroes saving the world, and I pretty much know what's going on. But if you've seen all the other like individual movies, you're going to appreciate little things in the movie even more. Yeah, and it's not exactly like if you were like, I saw Fellowship of the Ring and now Return of the King is coming out and I didn't see that one with the towers. I'll just
watch I have to see that tower one?
That's not going to make any sense. But if you watch like Infinity War without having seen Thor: The Dark World, there are things that you won't realize are callbacks to that movie, and you might be like, I don't know what that was about. But at least you're still going to understand what's going on. And again, very much like the comic books in that regard.
Yeah.
Cool. But what I was going to say about Falcon Winter Soldier was that it makes me like think about, okay, so I'm going into this show and I'm expecting it's just going to be like a buddy cop. They're going to go out and do like missions and things. But really, it's probably going to have big impacts on the MCU in general that none of us are able to really predict at this point. Yeah. So I'm really looking forward to seeing what that ends up being.
Well, it'd be fun. Baron Zemo, who's a villain in the show, has also been the leader of the Masters of Evil, which are like the anti-Avengers. And another member of the Masters of Evil is the Abomination. I bet you we're going to get an Abomination cameo. I bet you they'll do that.
Yeah,
I'm calling it right now. I'm calling it right now.
All right, I like that prediction. He
breaks him out of jail or whatever.
Yeah, maybe. Or he goes and sees or something, and he's locked in a cell, and they don't have to even get Tim Roth. They could just CG a guy in there, So it could happen. I don't know. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying.
I love it.
Well, I think that's it for this episode and for WandaVision. So thanks so much, Hector, for joining us for a second time for another long episode, but fun discussion. Where can everyone find you online?
Thank you guys so much. I really appreciate it. Alex, Molly, and Ashton. You guys can find me online. Follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Hector is Funny, and check out the YouTube channel Heroes Reforged to see me and my buddies talk about this stuff and react to this stuff. And again, thank you again. This has been really fun.
Ashton?
I'm on Twitch at Yeti Boatman is the name of my channel, and I stream on Tuesdays and occasionally on Mondays if I'm feeling like it.
Molly?
I'm at Molly Damon on Twitter and Twitch, and over on Star Wars Explained, talking Star Wars.
And we'll be doing this for the Bad Batch in just 2 months. So, but we'll be doing it on the YouTube channel, not here, not on the Twitch channel.
Cool.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Excited to do this again for Captain Winter Soldier and for all the extra shows that we're.
Oh yeah, we're gonna keep doing Explain It to Me for all of the shows and other nerdy things coming out like Godzilla vs. Kong and Mortal Kombat and so on.
Cool.
But that's it from us. I'm gonna put up the splash thing again. So Hector, you might want to take your AirPods out.
Okay.